In judicial system, the minute you go and talk, it immediately they wipe out saying custody will be given to the mother. There's a template. There's a template like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what it's going to be. Nobody sees the pain, the journey which is taken. It has taken anywhere between 4 to 8 to 10 years for people to reach where they have to reach. And in this whole 4 to 8 to 10 years, the toddler is already in college.
Yes.
And what did you achieve at the end of all this? Entire life is lost, ma'am. Entire life is lost.
That was the voice of Suresh, a father separated from his young child. Welcome to part 2 of this episode, Children Caught in Parental Wars, where we are all set to hear voices of parents who are going through this even as we speak. And there are 2 individuals right now on the call, one of whom is a father. We wish to protect his identity. He is someone who's estranged from his young son. And there is, of course, a father's angst and rage. We have Suresh on the call. We also have with us a mother who has consciously decided that the father of the child be the primary caregiver. Welcome to the show, Vinu Paul.
It's an absolute delight to welcome both of you to this show, because the objective of the Emotional First Aid show is to bring forward stories that are mostly contained to therapy rooms.
Yes, and Suresh, I'll go with you first. One is of the perception in society, the way even our films portray as if the mother's love is superior in some way for a child. And I think sometimes this lands up impacting lives, even probably judgments of custody.
Ma'am, that's how it has been portrayed over the years. Courtesy, society, movies, all those movies in 70s and 80s and even today. The way I would put it is, I would say father's love is no way inferior or secondary to what mother's love is. But unfortunately, the way it is, the way systems have been set in, the traditions and the templates which have been set in even in the legal perspective, that is what it is. But things are changing. Society is recognizing this fact. But it's a slow burner. It will take its time.
Coming to you, Vinu, you very consciously decided that in the interest of the child, the father of the child would be the primary caregiver. What was, you want to tell us a little more about that?
I decided to make a choice of divorcing or separating from my son's father. And it was a choice not by circumstance. And there was a legal battle that my ex-husband and I were fighting for more than almost 5 years. And my son was in the age group of 3 years to 8 years. So during his toddler age was when his father and I were fighting quite acrimonious battles in different cities and in different institutions. When I mean by different institutions, I meant the government, like the defense, and as well as the family court. As an individual, make a choice to move on from a marriage. You don't really think about the legal hassles that come into play later, but rather it's more of a personal choice at that moment that you no longer want to be in that marriage, and you hope that things can be smoothly separated.
Sure.
I was dealing with circumstances where I am fighting 3 to 4 cases in different cities and in different institutions. And as a mother, so I've been an ex-defense officer's wife. So I had, by marriage to him, I had kicked my career goodbye. So I didn't have a strong financial standing. And at the same time, I was been taken care of by my parents in terms of emotional support and a roof above the head, but not the financial support and not an understanding support that divorce is a choice that I made. They were not comfortable with it. Society stigma, etc. So inside of that, I also started researching and studying different cases. What's happening? What is that the law is entitled to give me, or what is the law entitled to give my child? And then I realized that there is a difference between a law and a judgment, and then there is something called mediation and negotiation, etc., etc. All of this sucks a person's energy. It drains a person's mental space, and I've seen mothers who were very healthy women who, over a period of time, over these battles, develop issues like cancer and thyroid and diabetes and heart issues. And I've seen parents sell their own property, their only house, just to take revenge. And I realized that that is not the path I want to go down. I realized that revenge is if you're going for revenge, you might as well dig 2 graves, and in my case 3 because I had a child, and for the other person, yourself and your child, right? So I started introspecting and looking at what is the real best way to amicably resolve the situation, because now at that point in time, what I also want to have you understand is the father was not involved in the child's life by his personal choice.
Okay.
It is not that I kept him away from the child. In fact, I used to take the child to court on the next hearing date, hoping that he would be able to see his father. But the father never turned up. There was also a promise that the father would wish the child on his birthday, but that call never came because later when we inquired, he was apparently advised by the lawyer that do not be in communication with the other party, especially when you have certain criminal cases against you. Okay. So the legal system prevented him, or he listened to the legal system and chose to stay away from his child for 5 years. Right? Now, inside of that, when you're trying to settle matters mutually, and it was by choice that I did not, my natural instinct was not to give up or to have his father be the primary caregiver, because I knew that I'm not making it as a general statement, but that individual, I knew that he's not independent enough to take those decisions and be able to he can't look after himself. Where is he going to look after his own child? In fact, in the current circumstances, it's just, he remarried, and his and my son's stepmother is the primary caregiver, which is not what I had envisioned when I had decided, when the agreement was drafted between the father and me. The father said that he will be the primary caregiver and he will be able to take care of these things in his capacity. But of course, the tables turned as soon as the divorce came through, and he remarried, and he remarried, and my son, all the decisions about my son and his emotional upbringing, his value system, etc., has been taken care of by the stepmother.
I see.
Now, inside of what led to the decision was that there was a certain financial lacuna that I had, okay, where I was not financially strong. Okay. At the same time, if I go on for these battles, the courts are not sensitive to understand that, there's a little child being involved over here, and things need to be time bound and needs to be resolved ASAP.
Right.
Okay. Because people have their own agenda, law, and in my case, I did not have a lawyer. I did not hire a lawyer. It's not that I didn't have a lawyer. I did not hire a lawyer because I came with the approach that the lawyer's strategy should be to resolve the matter immediately rather than take revenge. And lawyers, and I'm sorry if I'm touching a sensitive nerve here, but at least the opponent's lawyers were not interested in settling the matter. They wanted to drag it along. Now, I was also looking, it's not just my personal health and well-being, I'm also looking after a toddler's personal health and well-being and academic and overall holistic development, right? So I can choose to take revenge and drag this matter on, or I can choose to settle it in a way that, that the child gets what he deserves, whether it is being given by the mother or whether it is being given by the father. Okay. So inside of that circumstances, when the father had filed a case against us in the court in Delhi, I made a choice to plead before the court that the court tells the father to settle the matters in mediation. And this is the only bone of contention, that how the child will be taken care of. So, the courts have this, this is another loophole, okay, is that when alimony is given to the wife or the mother, when a child is involved, everybody encourages to say that whatever is given, say for example, 10 lakhs, I'm just giving it as a round figure.
Sure.
We're giving you 10 lakhs, you look after the child inside of that. Now, you may be, I mean, how is that even possible? Right? Like, you can't look after yourself in 10 lakhs. What are you going to look after a child for the entire life? And I've kicked my career goodbye. It's not like I had any savings. It's not that I was getting an income or anything of that sort, right? Irrespective of my educational status, right? So I think there was foul play over there. And I said, you tell me what part of that 10 is for the child and what part of it is for me. And then they were unwilling to look at it. And even the court said we cannot give you that bifurcation and the mediation. Okay. Now that to me was, that to me told that, hey, you know what? It's not fair on the child. He deserves his due. I can stand on my own 2 feet in due course of time. Okay. And I will build my way up, which is what I have done and demonstrated in the last 4 years. But some onus and accountability needs to be there on the father as well. Okay. When the father just made a random statement at that point in time, I don't think he envisioned that I would flip the table on him. He said, if you can't look after the child, for example, in 10 lakhs, so give the kid to me and look after him directly. I'm not giving you the money to look after the child directly.
I see.
So I said, fair enough. You're the father. It is your responsibility to look after the child. You better be involved in it. I'm happy to give you the child, to be the primary caregiver. You look after them. And I will take all your visitation rights, whatever you had asked for that. He had asked for a lot of things. I want to be consulted, whether the school is appropriate, inappropriate. I want to be consulted on so many matters. Only then the decision will be taken. I said, okay, I'll do it that way. And that moment was where I took a conscious call. It tore me apart within. I was a walking dead body for many, many months and maybe more than that. But for me, but I also, and it was not a decision I took on the spur of the moment. It was a decision that I had been working on for more than a year, because I had been seeing the difference. I'd seen the lack of support in the judicial system. I had seen the lack of support, from the society and the environment around me. I'd seen the lack of reciprocation to cooperate and settle matters from the other person. And I saw that there is one child here who's being neglected completely because everybody is out to take revenge.
Vinu, I'm first of all once again really thankful for sharing your story in such detail, Sunita. I mean, because even those who think they understand what a parent goes through in a divorce scenario or a child is going through.
And a world where they perceive this choice as, as a position of expressing selfishness.
But to come back to Suresh, here is your scenario, Suresh, where, having decided to part ways with your partner, came this blow of not being able to see your only child?
It all happened like the way it happens in movies. One fine day I was just told, and I had to just leave. In fact, I had to lie to the child that I'm going for a long office meeting trip, and I left. And I never foresaw that legal move is going to happen following this. I was still hoping that it's one of those things which I will still overcome. And the second shock, of course, the bigger shock was the documents being sent. That was a bigger shock. And then I realized, okay, it is somewhere point of no return. And in that, a layer of corona, while everybody had their own challenges, this part again of parents and families who couldn't. I couldn't even get video calls during corona. I had no idea where the child is, how the child is. Even now, that's how it is. I get my weekly visitation if I'm lucky. If I don't get it, then again I go back to waiting for that next week. So that's how it has been. I go through my own trials and tribulations. I keep wondering what the child is going through, how the child is evolving, how the child is, facing the world, how the child is going about things, getting normalized about this fact that one parent is not there.
How old was your child when you said you had to lie to your son that you are going off on a long trip? How old was he? And now when you get that really limited finite time with your child during the visitations, What is his emotional universe like?
When I left, he was about 6.5. It's been almost 5 years now, we've so it's been a real test of the bond. We met a couple of times, then I couldn't get to meet, no access on the phone, then Corona, then again get to meet, then cases going on, then I filed for something called interim visitation, then I get interim visitation, which was very acrimonious, and then slowly it started. So there was a start, stop. So I could never have a proper conversation with him for almost, I would say 2.5 years, where I could, at least tell him I'm sorry. Even to get to say I'm sorry, it took me 2.5 years of waiting for me to, tell him that I'm sorry. There were other opportunities, but I didn't use it. I waited for the day when I would meet him face to face, where I could, spend some time and speak to him. And I was trying to make it light, but I had to tell him a very, very neutral way of, without pointing fingers at anyone, saying this has happened, but I am there, standing right behind you. March on, and I am there. I'm your father. I'm there for you. That's the kind of conversations we started having. But then I also realized that is not what I want to spend the entire time that I'm getting with him. And we tried to normalize, we started, when my weekly visitations started happening, I was lucky. There was a period where I could take him home, bring him home. And then we would have it's like a baby's day out, those 5, 6 hours where you plan a lunch, you plan you probably go for a swim, you probably go out cycling. And again, I had to go back to court, abruptly stopped rather. And it's been 18 months before I again got in touch with him. Of course, I had my a few phone calls here and there. So it's been a start stop kind of relationship over the last 3 years, and that's what pains me even more. But still I've not given up. Currently, again, it's been some visitation sometimes, suddenly no visitation for weeks, and that's how it's been.
It's kind of wrenching to even imagine what you have told us just now. And what is the child's attitude towards you, or in the sense that making sense of what's happening in his world?
So I have spent a lot of time with him when he was growing up, as a parent who was, who wanted to spend more time, and as a parent who wanted to, look after more than run your corporate career. So I had, tilted more towards the child. So for me to reconnect, it was relatively more easy, had a lot more memories to talk about, a lot of things that we used to do without making him feel guilty or feel sad that, now you can't do it anymore. So I was, like any other thing, I was learning on the job. And one of the later conversations is where he opened up and asked me, but why did you leave? And the question he asked is, and the question was, why don't you come back? So because I was meeting him after a good 2 years, a lot of things happened. And while having studied in school, college, and understanding about people growing, maturity coming in, but you suddenly meeting your own child after a long gap, you also realize, the kid has grown, the kid is talking things which I never thought the kid will speak at this language. I also believe, children in these kind of situations probably grow faster than they should or they would, in terms of picking up the pace and moving on with life or the challenges that they face. Yeah. And from there is where, I had to share a few things, and I had to keep it very neutral. I had to tell him in a very, very simple language that things are not working out, and I had to step out, and I had to always keep it positive, very consciously saying, don't worry, your life, nothing is going to change. Your other parent is there with you. I'm here, not too far away. Just that you're going to be having two places to stay, shuffle, play, look around, travel. So that's how I consciously started having those conversations without getting very emotional or getting taken over by whatever I have gone through or whatever he has gone through for that matter.
Suresh, I'm just very curious to understand, after this entire experience of estrangement from your child, what does the word future mean to you?
Indian upbringing is all about beyond a point. It's also that you need to take care of the next generation. You need to give that foundation which your parents have given you.
Right.
What can you do about it? How can you do about it is a completely different ballgame.
Right.
But then how that challenge remains, and that has not changed. And that's what kind of gives me strength, gives me courage, motivates me, spurs me to carry on with my life.
Yeah, Suresh, this is something, what you have shared is very precious. Coming to you, Vinu, you had this new set of unforeseen challenges when the situation was flipped. What was that?
I mean, the first situation that I had to deal with was, when the father took a handover of the son and he had to admit him in a different school, they changed my name. They removed my name from the school records and replaced it with his wife's name. And that was something that was appalling for me. And I found out many, many months later, and I had to approach the school for it, that it needs to be changed, and that's a fraud or a crime, and it needs to be dealt with immediately. And it's not just because they're in the defense, they move from town to town. So it's, I think, sensitizing the schools to understanding the circumstances that my son is going through, the dynamics of the mutual consent and the court order was another challenge that we had to deal with. Also, for example, my son had to deal with, so for my son, he doesn't make a bifurcation between his stepmother and me. For him, he has grown to mutually love us both in different ways. He knows that his stepmother is not his mother, and he knows that I'm his mother no matter what. Right? So in school, when he has to share about things, like maybe in an art and craft class, there was an incident that happened where he shared that my stepmother taught me how to make origami flowers. Mm-hmm. The principal called out the student and my son and said, please do not use the word step in the class. Let them think that whoever is with you right now is your mother. So sensitizing the child on the school on this, yes, I mean, it was crazy, right? And I had a very difficult time to convince the school that I am the mother, irrespective of what's there in the agreement. No court can stop me from participating in the child's life, and I'm interested in, being highly involved in my son's academics. I may not be available in physically present for the parent-teacher meetings, but I had to appeal to the principals and the teachers side on a different level. So most teachers are women, and they're also mothers and fathers, and I had to plead to them. It took me many months because the father was unwilling to cooperate. Right? The father didn't respond. The father said, I am the sole custody of the child, and all of that manipulation was happening. And I had even taken the effort to go down to the school all by myself, and taken an appointment with the principal and the administrative officer under that interview.
This was in another
city? Yes, absolutely another city.
Yeah.
Yes. With absolutely no understanding. It's not like I was going on a tourist vacation, right? So I was going there with a heavy heart. I wasn't even sure if the principal will allow me to enter the school gates, right? I didn't even know how I would react or what would happen if the school didn't support me in this. Right. And there was an incident which, I mean, and all of this takes a toll on my son's emotional upbringing. So, I mean, like I was saying, that children don't really understand what they're dealing with. It just shows up as psychosomatic symptoms. Like my son in the initial period of the handover developed a certain rash all over the body that he couldn't explain. It's not like he had an allergic reaction to anything. It's not like he got bitten by anything. It's just a reaction on the body, and it was not getting cured by just a simple medication like Allegra or Crocin. It took its own time, and until he's made peace with the fact that he's not going to live with me on a day-to-day basis, that was when the rashes subsided. And also I had to deal with alienation for months on end, where my son wasn't sent to me as per the agreement, and my son he didn't know what he was dealing with. Like he didn't have the courage to tell his father that I want to go see my mother. Please send me to her. And I remember, and we do have daily calls. At that now by God's grace, we have a video call. At that point in time, if I could get a telephone call, it was a miracle by itself. And I remember my son even telling me, "Mama, can you please cut me into half? I will be half with you and half with daddy." For my son to say that, it was very shocking and traumatizing for me. So there were so many challenges that my son and I have faced, and I would really hand off to my son for being able to manage both houses, irrespective of what was being told to him. The other challenge that I want to state here is that, and which even Suresh had mentioned earlier, is that the child is being used as a pawn in the game, consciously or unconsciously, which is very, very detrimental to the upbringing of the child. Okay, so there were so many instances that the other party would be like, tell your mother that you want to come back on this time. You want to come back. You don't trust your mother. You tell your mother all of this. Now, I know that the child was being solidly tutored. So as his mother, I cautioned him, or I kept highlighting to him over many, many years and months that you need to start recognizing and start putting your foot down. See, if you're allowing yourself to being used as a pawn by your parents on the other side, your stepmother and your father there, then you're going to give me an opportunity to use you as a pawn to gain my benefit.
Imagine.
Now, do you want...
Imagine a 10-year-old.
Yes, a 10, 11, 12-year-old, yes. It's not just one time. Exactly. And he still doesn't comprehend it. So I had to figure out a way to get him to realize that, you know what, you actually don't want to be a pawn in the game, but you need to now start developing a way of being such that you can tell both of us to deal with each other directly and not involve you in the matter.
Yes, yes. With all this, I must note that your proactive stance, rather than just, kind of mope or rant or say that, okay, this is my lot, I'm having to do this, but, dynamically address and do whatever it takes. I mean, even if it means to actually go the whole distance to an entirely new state, city, school and make your case. But to come back to you, Suresh, to wrap this conversation with you on what Sunita and I had asked. One is that what is your advice for or suggestion for the legal system, and what was society's perception through all this?
All this has changed me so much that I don't know whether I will come back to what I was, right? I am scared of repercussions. I am scared of log kya kahenge. You won't believe where I stay. I am categorized as bachelor. And the society has an issue with. I'm also part of that set of people who are problem makers, who are creating problems. So finding a place to has become a problem. Getting to do certain things has become a problem. Getting friends over has become a problem. These are smaller things, right? I have not gone and made it public yet. Socially in other places. The other thing is, I have consciously stayed away from my child's school. Now, it's very contrary to what Vinu said, but my whole personal perspective was, at least let that ecosystem be not getting into a gossip about the child and the child's parents. That's one. Second is this whole point of view is that this whole perspective of one parent in the child's life is being potentially erased. For example, if the child says, "Can I wear blue or pink?" One person says blue, there's no other perspective. If the child says idli or dosa, there's no second perspective, So that whole balance thing of this or that, or a point of view, or a contrary point of view, or a suggestion, I'm in a lot of cases, it's not just the parent, whether father or mother, the entire extended family is being erased.
Yes. Right.
So you are not getting whatever, whether it is love, care, advice, suggestion, upbringing, perspectives, culture, emotions, all that is being wiped away. you wouldn't believe I had to go back and pull out certain photographs to show the child his cousins, and he couldn't recollect couple of them. On the judicial front, I mean, I'm a biology student, so this whole what mothers go through, right from childbirth to all that is being discussed, I completely respect it. But the same thing on the father's side has not even being discussed. Forget discussed. Is it being researched? It's being researched now, I am told, from whatever little I read. So this whole thing of treating both the parents equal is something which I mean I consciously in the last so many years have stopped saying father or mother. I just say parents. I mean, when I'm typing out something on WhatsApp, when I'm writing something, addressing, as far as possible, I'm calling them parents. In judicial system, the minute you go and talk, it immediately they wipe out saying custody will be given to the mother. I mean, there's a template. There's a template like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what it's going to be. But yes, like I said, I know people personally. I have interacted with a few people, fathers and mothers across in India, where things are changing. Where there are judgments coming out at High Court and Supreme Court level, but then nobody sees the pain, the journey which has taken. It has taken anywhere between 4 to 8 to 10 years for people to reach where they have to reach. And in this whole 4 to 8 to 10 years, the toddler is already in college.
Yes.
I understand if it's a battle for property or monetary gains, it's fine. At the end of the day, if you're saying 100 is going to come to you.
Childhood
here,
is
what
lost.
Do you get?
It's a point of no return, Suresh.
Entire life is lost, ma'am. Entire life is lost.
Vinu, you've heard Suresh, this approach of his, whatever he shared with us. In your case, what stage is the co-parenting right now? What is your message to the parents and mothers particularly who are in your position right now?
So co-parenting ideally begins with the mutual recognition that either parent is important for the child and needs to be involved. Yes. So it begins with, like, for example, in my case, it begins with me in my mind that I'm divorcing the father as a husband, but I'm not divorcing him as father. Yeah. He's divorcing me as wife, not as mother. So it begins, that's the basic hygiene, that is where it would begin. Okay? Yes. And that has not been, in my case, has not been accepted blatantly. There was a lot of, exchange of mails and WhatsApps and etc. that we are not co-parenting. You can please look the other way. Oh. Right? Now, what I did, yes. So what I did was, I said, well, you may think that we are not co-parenting, but in my world, I am co-parenting because the child is still mine, and I said it was my choice. It was not like you asked for the custody of the child or something of that sort. Over a period of time, over the last 4 years, irrespective of what the other people were doing, the circumstances that were there on the other side, I took a deep interest in working upon myself. My shortcomings, my perspectives on life. I re-evaluated my standards, my ideals, whether it be with regards to topics like money, whether it be with regards to topics like love or sex or marriage or success, right? And what it means to be a mother to me inside of this kind of a long-distance relationship with my son, where I don't have a direct impact on him over there, where he is in ground zero, but I do have an impact because I'm there as his mother. Now, there were emails and we do not speak to each other. We exchange emails. So now between parents, there was no exchange about what's happening with the child, how's he growing, what's he dealing with, all of that, right? So when I'm reading an email, there's an accusation, there is a blame, and all of that I'm hearing. Okay, so a few months ago, when I'm reading that mail, I would typically resort to a legal support. How can that person say this? I have so much of evidence to prove this and all of that. So when I worked on myself, I took a stand and tried to read between the lines. So I just stood in the other person's world and said, you know what? I understand that you want to keep him for a longer period of time. Now you tell me, when do you want to send him for his birthday to be celebrated with me?
Right. Okay.
I did not, yeah. And that one email, just a one line, I got you. You tell me how you want to go about it. It changed the game over there.
I see.
Now, over a period of time, I demonstrated this. Like, in fact, I even extended an arm saying that it's your birthday coming up and I know you're sending the son earlier. Do you want him to keep with you for a couple of days so that he gets to spend the birthday with you and you can come to me? So, then those kind of conversations, and then we wish each other. And it's not that, so I don't proactively wish the other person for a festival or something. I think what has happened is there has been a change. When I made a change where I am, I'm seeing that there's a change there.
Right.
So what happened this Easter? So we celebrated Easter on Sunday. His grandfather, his paternal grandfather, reached out to me and wished me on the festival.
Oh.
And I reciprocated. I said, I'm just thinking out loud here. Would you like to have a meal with us?
I see.
And he said gladly, because the other side's relatives are all where I'm located. And given that he's posted in different cities, he's not in the same city as us. So I can understand that. But my commitment is that my son gets a holistic perspective about what it would have been for him had his parents been together as husband and wife as well. Because, we're again going back to the point.
This is a beautiful turn. I mean, I know it's not a solution, but you worked for this, and it's really terrific to even, because it clearly takes a lot. I mean, things are not so easy with so much of hostile.
It's important that you work on yourself so that you get better lenses to look at life, and I think what you've achieved is phenomenal, Vinu.
And inside of this, my son, I started this conversation with my son that we should have a combined birthday celebration for a milestone birthday, which is coming this year. And I discussed this with his grandfather, and he said, I'm with you on it. Now, I can't assure you my relatives will be a part of it, but I'm with you on it. Now, when I discussed the same thing with my son, he said, you know what? I don't know. It may be weird, but meeting with granddad turned out, I expected it to be weird, but it turned out great. Okay. We can look at it. So my son is also developing to see a new reality, that things are not fixed. That there is a pink and a blue, there is idli, dosa, sambar, bisi bele baat and biryani.
And that's what is important, that we help our children understand that there are so many possibilities in life. It doesn't have to be this or that.
Just by the two of you deciding to so generously share with us and our listeners of Emotional First Aid your experiences, such deeply personal, intimate experiences, you have really... what do you
made
say?
Made this world less lonely.
Yeah, and it also helped us, right? I mean, actually, thank you. I mean, we really can't say enough of thanks for this. But really, thank you both, Suresh and Vinu Paul, for being with us on the show.
We as a society, need to make this commitment into understanding that a person's life does not have to be measured by their past. And this is something that each one of us can pass on to our next generation.
For sure. Which is why I'm going to ask you to give, as we usually do in the Emotional First Aid show, an exercise that we call Headstrong.
Any parent who is subjected to parental alienation, here's the thing that you need to contemplate upon. Most parents feel stuck because you somehow land in a place where you want your child to listen to your side of the story. And sometimes destiny offers it to you, but most of the time you need to make peace with that. Do not hold on to this particular expectation that, I will feel that justice is served to me only when my child listens to my side of the story, because honestly, there are so many sides to so many stories. And on the same note, I also want to remind every single person who is raising a child, don't beg. I often catch parents going to extreme levels of begging. Spend the birthday with me, spend your vacation with me, have you forgotten me? And I understand where these sentiments come from. But you need to understand that while you're respecting your child's boundaries, you also need to respect yourself. Most often, parents forget about themselves in this entire suffering that they are subjected to. So remember, don't let respect, whether for your child or for yourself, diminish, and don't get into the habit of begging. So here's today's Headstrong exercise, which I truly believe will help any person who's practicing this, because it has helped so many patients who have come to my therapy sessions.
Sure.
When you're feeling lost or tempted to dial the number and then try to make a connection when you are alienated from your child, you need to take a deep breath and try to focus on a larger picture and remind yourself the age-old saying, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. And this too shall pass. The whole life is all about learning to letting go. It's exactly like you hear in the movie Life of Pi, where Irfan Khan says, entire life can be summed up into this one spiritual reality, which is all human life is all about letting go. You learn to let go. As parents, we dream about bringing up independent, resilient children, and sometimes they agree or they may not agree. It is the time for you to remind yourself that you cannot live their lives for them. And that is exactly when you have to take a deep breath and recite, this too shall pass.
With that, we come to an end of this episode. It's been quite a journey for us as hosts of the Emotional First Aid Show. Speaking about children caught in parental wars, but we do look forward to your feedback. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Emotional First Aid Show. If you like what you heard, do subscribe and write in with your comments and suggestions. Thanks again for watching.